Welcome to the VBAC Homebirth Stories podcast, where we celebrate and share powerful VBAC homebirth stories to inspire and support mamas just like you. I'm your host, Ashley Winning, a VBAC homebirth advocate and mama of 3, and I believe every woman deserves to birth with confidence and trust in her body. In each episode, you'll hear real-life stories, expert insight, and encouragement to help you feel informed and empowered on your VBAC homebirth journey. Let's dive in. Yeah, like there's a transition when you have twins because you've got to look after 2. And so if you're coming home and trying to navigate, like it gives you that little bit of period where you're looking after both of them, which is no small feat, by the way. Looking after twins and breastfeeding twins is amazing. So like it's challenging, it's hard. And like you should have been given extra support because extra, love and nourishment. You're physically breastfeeding 2 children, having to nourish 2 babies. So you should have been making sure. I know the hospitals aren't set up like that, but like, where's the compassion? Like this woman's been flown from here to Timbuktu and back, and her babies have been in NICU and special care. And like, why would that not be like, oh my goodness, you've been through hell and back. Like, let's help you as much as I can. I'm a nurse. I'm a midwife. That's my job, to be compassionate and loving and caring and thoughtful. And like, yeah, it's so weird.
Yeah, that's it. So, it was pretty disappointing. And again, it really just comes down to, the individual too. Like, one time you get a really great person, they're just so good at their job. Like, they clearly love what they're doing and they're doing it well. And then, the next person, whether they feel the same about the job, I don't know, but it just seems like they are doing it for a job. Like, a job is a job, and that's it at the end of the day. But, yeah, that was tough. Postpartum with them was really good. Obviously, I feel like I had quite some time in Brisbane and not having to handle my older children. My recovery for my section actually was pretty good. I did a lot of walking early on because we were walking up and down from Ronald McDonald to the hospital. And at the start, I was pretty slow because, it was full. And towards, the end of it, like I was starting to get faster and I was feeling better. And I really think it did help a lot with my recovery too, just being active, but not necessarily overdoing it, but just staying active and moving around. So by the time I got home, we got back to Rockhampton 2 days before Christmas. We ended up spending Christmas there with some family and then came home. But yeah, by the time I came home, I was well enough to just get on with it, look after the kids that I had. I know they say you should wait 6 weeks and stuff before you do the washing and all that sort of stuff, but it was far from my reality. Obviously, you just try your best to make do. Like if something feels too strenuous or whatever, you just don't do it. If it feels okay, then I just, had to get on with it, do it. But my recovery was good, given it was a section. Fed them, breastfed them until a bit past 1. And yeah.
How was having twins? Like, how was having them in that first year, like comparing singletons?
So it was busy. It was very, very busy. To be completely honest with you, as much as it was a very big shock finding out they were twins. Once I wrapped my head around the fact that, we are having twins, I was excited. Everyone said to me, oh, so are you going to get help? Like, are you going to get someone in? Are you going to get help? And I said, no, I can't afford help. I can't afford a nanny. I'm just doing this on my own. Like, me and my husband, we're just doing this. And I said straight up from the start, I said, I'm not worried about the first year. The first year doesn't faze me at all. Thankfully, like all of our kids have been good babies. We haven't had kids, like babies with severe issues where they're screaming and crying all the time, and just really upset and unsettled and that sort of stuff. So our babies have been easygoing. They eat, they sleep. Sure, you know, there's a little bit of crying from time to time, but nothing that you can't deal with. So automatically I was never stressed about the first year because I just had hope that they would be very similar to our other children, which they were. They were fantastic. They fed, they slept. I was very busy. I was constantly feeding a baby, changing them, feeding the next baby, then dealing with my other children as well. So it was busy. I can't reflect back and say that I enjoyed them as newborns and babies the way that you would with a singleton, because it was just around the clock. And then we're trying to squeeze in swimming lessons for the other kids and, you know, kindy and all that school stuff. And, yeah, so it was full on. I knew, though, once they were toddlers, that's when I would feel differently about it because, you know, my other kids are toddlers and I know what a toddler is like. And you times that by 2 plus the other 2, that is going to be something else. And so, yeah, people would be like, oh, are you worried, you know, about twins? And I said, no, but ask me in a year's time and I may give you a different answer. So, yeah, they were beautiful babies. Postpartum was busy but not unmanageable. And, yeah, definitely in their toddler years, things now it's hectic. They are messy. You don't have one pulling stuff out. There's 2 of them just pulling stuff out. They've gone in different directions. You know, they don't come when they're called. And then the other kids, one of my older boy especially, he encourages one to run away because he'll run with him. And they're just cheeky, you know. They're getting cheeky now and they know it. So it's really ramped up.
Fun.
Yeah.
So then you had like a couple of years gap, and I'm guessing you're in the thick of it and you're like just surviving the life that you have.
Yeah.
But have you had any time to kind of process the experiences that you've had?
I did do a lot of reflection on all of my births, and my husband and I would talk about it quite extensively, you know, how we have gone through so many different experiences. Like, each was so different. We feel like slowly but surely we're starting to experience it all, you know, in different ways. So, yeah, I did have a lot of reflection on it. And with time, you know, I had sort of made my peace with where things were, and I would do things a bit differently, you know, like nowadays, if I would have had my twins again, I probably would have been comfortable and more confident to actually hang back a bit, and give a breech delivery a go. You know, but you can't change that. Like, each experience has taught me something else, and I have grown more and more with each experience, in ways, you know, you don't sort of expect, and it ties together in the end.
You did have like complicated, like things that, you know, that other people don't have to deal with as well, like having to travel 4 hours away and then going to labour when you weren't expecting it, and all these sorts of things that just popped up that, you know, were out of your control. And that's life and birth, isn't it? It's riding, and you don't know everything because you're not an expert and you're just trying to navigate. And at the end of the day, like, that obstetrician was, okay, we are going to deliver, but you really want someone who knows what they're doing for it to be as safe as possible, rather than them causing more damage. Then so it's funny.
That's exactly right. Like, you know, I don't have anything against the medical system is there for a reason. And, you know, sure, if I was in Rockhampton at a hospital that was equipped for the twins, maybe I would have pushed a bit harder to try, you know, or not pushed harder, but I would have been quite confident to hang back a little bit and then turn up ready to, you know, go into having these kids and giving it a go, because they just have to deal with the situation. Like, they can't tell you not to come. But again, you know, with the twins, you know, especially with the one twin having that pneumothorax, like these little things, you know, I am glad that the section did go the way it did. I am glad that they did the section. I wasn't glad to have the section. I'd never wanted a section. But I'm glad it worked out how it did, because at the end of the day, I don't know if my baby would have been okay had I have had him naturally, you know, breached naturally with what was happening. Like, at the end of the day, like, he needed that intervention, and, you know, it was just necessary, and it was dealt with, and, you know, he's okay. So sometimes it's needed, you know, but it's just trying to find the right context of when it is truly needed and when it's just part of the protocol and the system.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've been reflecting with your husband over the years, and you've had a couple of years gap, and you were planning to have 3 babies, but you ended up with 4, surprise. Then did you plan another baby, or what happened?
No,
okay.
Definitely not. So we've got our 4 kids. We are happy.
Yep.
You know, we had that extra child, but, you know, we're happy. We're very happy. We're satisfied. You know, things are great. We do not plan on having any more. I wasn't on contraception, like the pill or anything like that. You know, we just very careful with how I have very regular cycles, so we're very careful, and we've used that protocol for all of the years between our children and never had an issue. Everything's like clockwork. And funnily enough, that one cycle, my husband said to me, "Oh, I feel a bit anxious. Like, I really don't want to have another. Feel a bit anxious. Like, are you sure, you know, it's right to go?" And I said, "If you feel anxious, let's hold off. We'll hold off for a few more days, like, you know, until, you know, you're ready." You know, around ovulation time, that we would normally be more careful. So instead of waiting 5 days around the ovulation mid-cycle, we waited 10 days. In 10 days, like, a pretty, you know, should be right for a regular cycle. Has been never a problem before. And the day before my period was due, I don't know why, I had this gut instinct and this strong urge to do a pregnancy test. I don't know why, because I was not planning on having a child. I knew that we were very careful that cycle. Like, there shouldn't really be much of a chance of this anyway. But for some reason, I did this test. And sure enough, I was gobsmacked when I saw the 2 lines come up straight away. And I just cried. I cried, and I'm thinking, what on earth is this? Like, this is not how it's meant to be. Like, you know, what are we going to do here? Like, we did not plan on having more kids. We were trying to be extremely careful. Like, how is this happening? It took me a few days to tell my husband, because I just didn't know how to tell him. I cried, thinking of all the things. How are we meant to deal with this? And how is he going to deal with this? What are we going to do here? Like, he said no, he doesn't want to have more. And sure, I didn't really want to have another one, but at the same time, I never felt completely done after the twins either. Like, I never got that true feeling of saying, I'm done. I think my heart will always want another one.
Were you more
I'd
upset
love to
about
give.
Were you more upset about your husband, like displeasing him, or yeah?
Yeah, honestly, I was very stressed because I'm thinking, well, he was very clear that he really did not want to have me kids. Like,
Mm.
how are we going to navigate this? Because I'm okay with it. It's not the plan, but I'm okay with it. I'll take it in my stride, and I'm going to love this child no matter what. How is he going to cope with it? How is he going to react to it? What is he going to want to do? Like, how are we going to handle this if we both want something different? Anyway, eventually the news got to him, and I told him, and I was crying and stressed, and he just looked at me and he smiled and he said, "This is a good thing. This is great. Why are you so upset about it? Like, how special is this? This is fantastic." And I said, are you kidding? Like, I thought you were so, dead set on not going again. And he said, well, sure, it wasn't part of the plan. It wasn't really what I intended, but we didn't plan on having twins either. But here we are, and they're the greatest things that's ever happened to us. How could you not want, how could you not want to do that? And, he was pretty ecstatic. And then I felt a bit better about it. The next day, I think when the news sort of settled in a little bit and I started to feel better about it, he was kind of feeling the feels a bit. He was like, oh, wow, like this is really happening. How are we going to do this? He had one day there where he was also feeling a little bit like, oh, is this the right thing for us? We're not really sure, but anyway, we're going to do it. We were so blessed to find ourselves in this position. And yeah, let's roll with it, And we both knew straight from the start that regardless, once we have that child, you would never wish that you didn't have that child. Like, we knew that we would love that child endlessly. And it's true. The funny thing is, it's so true. You didn't plan on having them, but when you have them, you cannot wish it any other way. Like, they just bring something else to your family. Each child's different, and yeah, just fills that little gap.
Yeah.
But anyway,
yeah,
it was a bit of a surprise one, and my pregnancy, I again did the same thing as what I do every other first trimester. Did the medication. This time I was very, very deep into naturopathic care as well, and my holistic approach to everything is just growing bigger and deeper. I want less intervention. I don't want to do all of the standard care and protocols and stuff. So I am, have always grown up in a household of Christian faith. So moving to Australia was a pretty big deal for us, and we heavily relied on our faith and trusting in the Lord to provide us with certainty that this is the right decision to do. So yeah, I won't say I never obviously lost my faith, but there was a period of time during my younger years where it probably got put to the back burner a little bit. Like, never went away, but just I didn't prioritize it as much as I would have liked.
Are you and your husband religious now?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
But we're not. I would say I am more than my husband.
Mm-hmm.
we are, but we're on a different journey. So he's not as far into his religious journey as what I would be.
Yeah. Do you go to church regularly, or do you do that from home?
No, I don't get to go to church. I would love to go, but it's such a big drive, and we lose. Well, not lose, but it's a whole day. It's a whole Sunday. It's still away from home, and we're already coming and going so much during the week that it's just a lot with all the kids. So it's something that I just do from home. But yeah, I wish that could be different. But anyway, so when I found out about this pregnancy, straight away I decided, this is something that I give to the Lord. Like, this is something that I'm going to trust him with, because the way it came about was, so surprising. Like, if you're speaking from technical terms, like, it shouldn't have happened. Like, it was so close to my cycle starting. Like, it should not have actually even been. It obviously worked itself out. But
yeah, I was just wondering, like, because you said you waited 10 days, you probably wouldn't have had a very long, is it called the luteal phase?
Yeah.
Where you're literally, they say if it's under, it has to be at least 7 days, I thought it was, or something.
That's right. Like, it was so close. So, yeah, like, if you want to get into the technicalities of it, I don't believe it probably should have.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't normal anyway.
But the baby.
So from the start, I said, right, this is for the Lord to work out. I'm going to trust him with this. I'm doing one day at a time and giving it to him. If he wants me to have this child, then he will make it work. And so obviously I get on my medication. I do what I do every first trimester. Also doing naturopathic care to help boost the progesterone. Like, I'm feeling so grateful to be blessed with this opportunity. I didn't think that I would get a chance to have. So I'm trying to do everything I can to try and support my body and this baby. And 6 weeks come and I start bleeding. And I'm thinking this is very strange, because I took the same medication with my second and with the twins, and the spotting and the bleeding stopped quickly. Once I started it, it stopped quickly. It didn't really linger. And I'm taking the medication, but I'm bleeding like a fair bit, enough that I have that same anxiety that I had with my daughter when I had a lot of bleeding in my first trimester after my 2 miscarriages. And, I'm feeling anxious because I'm doing, even more. I'm even doing naturopathic care, like a lot to try and support myself. And the bleeding's on and off. Again, enough that it gives you a lot of anxiety. But I said, when it feels heavy, I said, well, the Lord will sort this out. If he needs, whatever he needs from me, whatever is the plan here, I need to trust in that. And, I give it to him and we just take it one day at a time. So I did. First trimester was much the same until about 13 weeks or so. The bleeding stopped. I stopped the medication. And I saw my private OB/GYN usually I see him until 20 weeks, and he gives me then to the hospital system. This time I saw him until 28 weeks. And then I said, I don't really want to be transferred over, but I don't have private health either. But he told me from the very start, so this is going to be a section, because he said, what do you want to do with your birth? And I was like, well, obviously I'd actually really like to do a VBAC, because I've had a VBAC. It was incredible. The twins were a section, but I didn't want them to be a section. But they were twins. Like, it is what it is. And he said, oh, well, you've had 2 sections now, so regardless, doesn't matter, it's a section, end of story. And the public hospital will tell you the same thing. If I did it or if they did it, whoever did it, it'll be the same across the board. And he sort of said that to me, but I heard it, but I never really did anything with that information because I was 1 year in 1 year, out the other year. And it never made its way into my heart too much. Just wrote it off. And I just carried on. I only really had appointments with him, not even once a month. It was about once every 6 weeks, once every 2 months. Very rarely had appointments with my last pregnancy, and I was happy with that. I didn't really care. Once my baby started moving and I could feel my baby's movements and everything like that, that's when I was, happy to really wind down my care. He transferred me over to the public system at 30 weeks. Usually I see the hospital here until about 36 weeks, and then we make the decision whether we go to Rockhampton or whether we go here. Now, every other time I've had to go to Rockhampton because there was always something, whether it was BMI or it was the twins. So I did my first appointment here. They were in a flap and a plaster because I was coming in so late. It was 30 weeks, and I'm only just now coming into the hospital system. They tried to go through what has been done, what hasn't been done. Things are getting missed, like I was meant to have anti-D. I was meant to be approaching my second round of anti-D, and I haven't even had one. They kind of half just freaking out. Oh, the vaccinations, you're going to do the vaccinations, all of these things. There's all of this protocol they want me to do, and I'm like, no, sorry. I'm not doing any of that. And that obviously gets to be in their bonnet because they're like, well, we need you to, are you really sure? Have you really given thought to this? Can you take the information booklets away and go and read about it? And, maybe, at your next appointment we can talk about it again. I said, give me the information booklet, that's fine. But we're not discussing it. So I had an appointment at 33 weeks. I had an appointment at 34 weeks. So the first one was with the midwife, then with the doctor. The doctor said, so your birthing option, what do you want to do? I said, well, obviously I would like a VBAC. And she said, no, it's a section.
I love it how you say, obviously I want a VBAC. Duh.
Well, I've got a singleton baby. Like, why can't I have a VBAC?
Why ask what your birth choices are if they're only going to provide you with one option? Yeah. So what do you want to do? I want a VBAC. No, we're not doing that. Your only option is a C-section. Okay, great conversation.
And so she said, okay, well, I said, well, I haven't had 2 sections back to back. I had a VBAC in between. Why can't I have a VBAC now? No, it's just policy, We're low risk here. It's policy. The thing is, the risk to you may be low.
Is this, sorry? Is this the local one that you...
The local one.
Yeah, okay. So this is the local one where you went in for the twins and they performed the surgery. Yeah. Okay, yeah, cool.
And they said to me, even Rockhampton won't accept it. Like, you would have to... you're going to have to go to a tertiary hospital in Townsville or Brisbane if you want them to consider a second VBAC. And I was like, oh, gosh, okay, right, that's a lot. How can I do that? I've got 4 kids at home. My husband is a rural contractor. He is in the thick of work right now. Like, it's seasonal, so his contract's growing at the time. He's doing massive hours. He's away from home. How do I pack you have to go so early to go and wait at the, just in case something happens. It may happen early, it may happen late. How would you know? You don't know. I can't spend a month away going to wait to have a baby, to have a VBAC, or try to have a VBAC. It just uproots my whole life too much. I can't commit to that. So I said, oh, okay. And they said, so do you want to book your section dates in now? Like, you're low risk, your pregnancy's been perfectly fine. Low risk, your BMI is fine this time. We can do it here. Do you want to book it in? And we can do it here. And I said, well, I'm not booking it in right now. But it's too early. I said, I don't know. I haven't decided if I want to go here or if I might want to go to Rockhampton. I'll go home and talk to my husband about this and see what we want to do before we commit to anything. I said, do we have time? Yeah, well, we wouldn't schedule it in until 37 weeks anyway. Like, we wouldn't do it before 37 weeks. No, sorry, 39 weeks. She said, we won't be doing a section before 39 weeks at all. And I was like, okay, well, then we don't need to do this now. I said, how long do you need to know before that? Yeah, about 2 or 3 days.
Did they know that your second, which was a VBAC, your baby came at like 38, didn't it?
Yeah, so my first was 39, my second was 38 and 3.
Didn't they know that?
The twins were 36 weeks, right? So I said that to her. I said,
yeah.
So what do we do here? Okay,
yeah.
You want me to schedule a section for 39 weeks. All of my other kids have come at these times, and they know that. So what do we do? And she says, no, we schedule it for 39 weeks, right or wrong, but if you start to go into labour at all, you need to come straight away, and, that should give us enough time to still get a section in. Come straight away.
Even though your second was a 4-hour labour and she saw you, or they saw you with the twins.
Well, with the twins, so it was 9 o'clock when we left. And by 10 o'clock when I got to the hospital, I was 7 centimetres going on 8.
And you were barely feeling anything as well. And
I was thinking, I started to get a few pains. I was a little bit uncomfortable, but I don't know,
This is madness. But
so I was like, okay. So I said, okay, so what now? So you're telling me if I come. I said, so what if I come in here and I'm 8 centimetres? Like, what happens then? She said, well, obviously, if you're 8 centimetres, it would be silly and too risky to proceed with a C-section. We would just have to deal with the situation and proceed. What can we do? And that sort of sparked a thought in my head a little bit. I was like, that's interesting. Okay. And I left from there, and now the last month of my pregnancy was wild. Like, there was a lot going on in my mind. There was a lot happening in a short period of time, because I went from just cruising, not seeing anyone doing anything, to a complete 180, all in the matter of a month, while anxiously wondering if I'm going to have my baby early. So prior to that, I didn't do a lot of chiropractic care, and I didn't do a lot of spinning babies and stuff as religiously as what I did with my first VBAC. I was hell-bent on having that VBAC, and I was going to do everything to have that VBAC. So I did that stuff very early on. This time I was busy. I had 4 little toddler kids. Like, it was hard to make mental capacity for all of it. I said, okay, I need to get myself organised. Like, I rang my chiropractor who did my body work. She said, well, I don't do women's care anymore. I only do children. And she's a wonderful woman. She said, but you know what? For you, I am going to open up an appointment for you. So come in on this day. I have another lady that works with me that does women's care and children, but I don't do women's care anymore, but I'm going to give you this appointment. And then following on from that, you can see the other woman that works with her. And I said, thank you. So I went in, she did my care. She does a bit of kinesiology, actually. She did a bit of that. And I remember her doing that with me when I first saw her, and it was incredible. Like, I never knew anything about kinesiology. She asked if she could do some. I said, yeah, sure. And every time I walked out of there, I felt so much lighter. I felt incredible. So she did some of that, and I sort of started talking to her about the fact that, you know, the hospital said, well, if I come in and things are heavily underweight, they can't deny my care. And she said, yeah, it's true. And I said, oh, that's interesting. So I started to also listen to podcasts. One night I sat in my bed and I just typed in Instagram, VBAC after to, what is it? VBA2C. You know what the abbreviation is for it. Typed it into Instagram, just trying to see if I can find a story, if I can find someone else's story. And funnily enough, I found your page. There wasn't a lot of information on like secondary VBACs or VBACs after the second C-section. A lot of the first-time VBACs, but not a lot of second-time VBACs. So it was hard to come across information. I found your page, and I was like, wow. So I checked it out, you know, followed it on Instagram, and found your podcast. I started to listen to the podcast just one after another. I spent so many late nights, like just pumping through all this information. And everything in me just started to shift. Like, I knew what I wanted. I'm like, I want a VBAC. Other people, you know, having secondary VBAC. Like, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm not broken. I've had a VBAC before. I was fully dilated with my first. I had a VBAC. I was 7 centimeters dilated between. Like, why can't I have a VBAC? I know there's policy, but there's nothing wrong with me. You know, I want to try. Obviously now I'm so unsupported because the hospital says, no, forget about it. My husband and his family, they're very they're into the medical system, you know. Especially with birthing. Like, it's so and obviously, you know, I had gone to the appointment. They knew that the hospital policy was a section, and they said, you know, that's just what you have to do. Like, just get over it and, you know, do it. You'll be right. And I said to my husband, but I can't. I cannot willingly line up for a section if I don't need it. I said, sure, I understand emergencies. I understand if the baby, you know, truly needs it. But I'm not willing to line up. I said, I have 4 children at home to look after. You're away working in the thick of work. And your mum and sister, they have their own lives. They're ramping up a lot business-wise. Like, they're not available like they used to be. So I cannot put myself in a situation where I'm not keeping up with my life willingly if I don't need to. We didn't really discuss it too much more than that. He knew and understood how I felt about it, but at the same time he said, well, I don't want you to have a baby at home because I'm not comfortable with that. I can't handle that. It's too much. I'm too worried if something goes wrong. We're far from help. It's half an hour to an ambulance station, but that's if there's an ambulance sitting there ready. In most cases, there's not. the times that we've called ambulances out here, it's been an hour, hour and a half before the ambulance got here. So, you know, it's a lot. And I understand where he's coming from, given his family history, given everything that we have been through with all of our other pregnancies and births and stuff. Like, it's heavy. It's a lot. I understand why he feels the way he feels. But I'm also now feeling stuck between a rock and a hard place because I know what I want and it's not really lining up with what anyone else wants. So what do you do with that? Of course, I'd listened to so many podcasts on your page, and I've listened to the Homebirth with Midwives. I've listened to Freebirth. I've listened to all of them. I would love to do a home birth with a midwife. I don't have a problem with them at all, but I don't have access to those resources. I have access to nothing except a hospital that tells me their policy is a section. Whether you need it or you don't need it, that's their policy. So now I have to dig deep. And my appointment with the midwife at 36 weeks, she said the baby is transferred. They said, so it's really important, you need to understand that your baby is transferred. If you show any signs of labour, you need to come in here immediately because it can be so detrimental should you start to labour the transfer baby. I was like, oh, right. Like, this is not what I need. Like, I'm doing it all. I'm doing chiropractor. I'm doing spinning babies. I'm doing everything I can. You know, and transfers is so close to head down. You know, it was sort of oblique transfer. So close, but just not quite head down. And every time I go to the chiropractor, she says, your baby has so much room. I'm not sure why the hospital staff are so worried about it, because your baby is not out of room. There is a lot of room for him to change positioning all the time. And I said, well, I do feel him constantly changing. Like, one time, you know, he's transverse, the next is head down, the next his breech. I'm feeling him in all sorts of directions, you know, regularly. And she said, well, I'm not surprised because your belly at 36 weeks, 38 weeks is, what's that? It's as roomy as it was at 36 weeks. Like, your baby's not running out of room. It's not constricted. There's plenty of room. So I wouldn't stress. She said, again, babies can move right up until birth. You know, they've moved during birth. She just said, I wouldn't be so stressed about it. And so that made me feel a little bit better. Like, okay, like, you know, these people, they know. And I trusted her more than what I did the hospital. They worked with a lot of women and pregnant women, you know. But then it's listening to the other women's stories on the podcast. There was one podcast in particular, and it was the only one that I could find that was not part of your series, where another woman spoke about her free birth with a transverse baby. And she birthed, and the baby turned from transverse to head down right before the baby was born. And that was all of the information that I could find. There was not a lot of information out there about it, other than a few women's stories. All the information says section, section, section. It is too dangerous. It's risky. Like, forget about it. And I remember now feeling, my pregnancy hormones, I'm nearing the end of my pregnancy. They're running high. I'm getting pushed for time because I'm 38 weeks. I haven't had my baby yet. The hospital was meant to make me another appointment. And I'm 1 week away from when they want to schedule a section. I can't make the baby come other than hope the baby comes with him on his own. And every day goes by and I haven't had that text message come through from the hospital to say, you're booked in for your next appointment at this date. And I know that the day that they want me to come for my next midwife appointment is the day they want to schedule the section. Now, also approaching Easter. So my full term is literally, 3 or 4 days before Easter. So I don't have a lot of wiggle room here to negotiate with them and say, look, sure, I'm 39 weeks now, or I'm 40 weeks and I haven't had the baby yet. I don't want to have my section today. I want to push it out another 2 or 3 days in the hopes that I have my baby before the section day is booked in. Because it's getting to Easter time. Like, you can't just book sections over Easter. They're going to want to do it before because they want to have a holiday. So I'm getting a little bit anxious now because I'm not ringing them up to say, hey, I haven't heard from you. I haven't had a doctor's appointment in 36 weeks, a midwife checkup. I'm not really concerned about it because I feel well. I'm doing really well within myself. I don't have any signs or symptoms of preeclampsia. I don't, I feel my baby moving. I'm very happy with his movement. Like, I go through my head and I think about everything that they asked me during my checkup and how I would answer them if they asked me that right now. And I think, yep, I'm happy with that. Like, I would have said that to them. They may have checked with the Doppler for 30 seconds, and that's neither here nor there. What does that really tell you in the big scheme of things, listening to the baby's heartbeat for 30 seconds? I could feel the baby moving. I'm happy. Like, I would have told them that. I would have walked away, and they would have said, okay, see you again in a couple of days. My husband and my mother-in-law, they sort of get a bit anxious, Oh, you're supposed to be booked in for next week and you haven't heard from, are you going to contact the hospital? I said, no, definitely not. Because if I contact them, they're going to book me in. But you haven't had a checkup. Like, do you think you should at least just go and get a checkup? Well, we were a bit concerned. And I said, I understand your concern, but if I go, they're going to book me in. I said, if I was concerned, I'm no fool. If I felt concerned about something, I would go and get checked. I'm not reckless, but I'm well. My baby is well. We are okay. Right now, each day, we're good. But I'm still, in the back of my mind, concerned about the positioning. I am a bit anxious. Like, I can feel the baby and I can tell when he's head down, but he's not always head down. And he can literally flip between head down and breech. Like, I am a little bit anxious because I am getting closer. And I know that I'm not going to rush in. I said straight up, I'm not rushing in. My husband said, well, we need to go to the hospital. And I didn't necessarily plan to do a home birth as such. I just said to him from the very start that I will not race in there at the very first sign of birth, of a contraction.
So when did you switch over to wanting, like deciding that you were going to plan a home birth?
as I was birthing.
Well, I don't think that's necessarily true because we had a session and you were planning a home birth when we had
Oh,
the
yeah,
session,
that's
right?
true, actually. Yeah, I did.
At what
Yeah, probably,
stage did that
it was
happen?
literally, what, a week before? I messaged you the very first time at 38 weeks.
I feel like you were 38
We
weeks.
had a
Yeah.
session at 39 weeks, I'm pretty sure, and I had him at 40 weeks. So it was about a week before that I really started to hone in
Mm.
on the fact that I wasn't going in.
Yeah. And you made an intentional decision to home birth. So you obviously went, but maybe you were in two paths still. Maybe you were planning this home
Yeah,
birth, but still planning.
yeah,
So what, if you can remember what happened there, what sort of
yeah.
happened? Yeah.
Um, yeah, I guess, you know, well, see, I was so worried about my husband. Like, he didn't want the home birth, and I was, I wanted to do the home birth. And that's when I remember during our session, talking to you about how to go about that. And, we decided, well, we don't necessarily, we can delay things, we don't have to, it's a matter of getting him to pack reports, or it's a matter of, just slowing things down, and giving it a chance to progress further and further at home, to the point where you kind of just didn't have a choice anymore.
Yes, because I do remember, like, I think it was complicated because your husband was working away, but then could have been home. So we had all these variables.
Scenario.
And then it was like, I remember having a conversation about the ambulance being like half an hour away. Because
Yeah.
normally I would be like, oh, you're 10 minutes from the hospital, you're 5 minutes from an ambulance.
Yeah, that's
And you had
right.
all these different things. And then I remember you were like, I talked to you about getting the home born at home book, and I feel like we were talking about what to do in an emergency, what were some of the
Yeah.
emergency things. And then, yeah, it was about like if your husband is home, slowing down that process because you had such a quick labor with your VBAC,
Yeah.
expecting the same, but also every woman that is at home that is potentially a quick birther should be planning, in my personal opinion, for a home birth, like a free birth,
Mm.
either like a birth at home. Like, I think it's really like in the best interest for the mother and for the baby, so that the mother's calm and she feels like, hey,
Mm.
this is not the end of the world. Um, because the alternative is you're driving down the road in the middle of the night, your husband's driving, you both don't know what's going on, there's no ambulance to come, and you guys
Yeah.
don't know what's happening, or you're at home and you're in the same situation. So
Mm.
um, it's a great idea to plan, as Catherine Bell from Birth Map recommends,
Yeah.
to plan for a potential free birth because some women do have really quick labours.
Mm. Yeah.
So you were kind of in this world of like, I'm planning for this. This is what I really want, but I don't want to go against my husband. But I'm just
Yeah.
going to do a bit of in between, but really my heart, and I'm planning for a home birth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And whatever happens, happens.
Yeah. That's it.
So now you're 40 weeks, which is your longest pregnancy ever.
Yeah, that's right. So very surprised that I'm getting to 40 weeks, and I haven't had the baby yet. Still haven't heard from the hospital, and I'm no intention of contacting them. I decide that, um, it's one day at a time. My husband actually he finished local work and he was going to be away for an hour and a half drive away. I said, that's fine. I'm not concerned. I'll let you know if anything's happening. And yeah, ironically enough, it was that day that he went further away for work. 2:00 in the night, I started to get some pain, but it was 10 minutes, or it was a decent time apart. And I sort of put my worship music on, listened to worship music, went through that. about 5 o'clock, I decided I'm tired from being up all night. I'm just going to go and lay down while my kids are still asleep. One of my twins, the less affectionate one, woke up early and he laid with me and actually held me and just kissed me that morning, which I was surprised by because it's not like him, and it was just this little love bubble. And, you know, that morning when all the kids got up, the contractions started to come on and get more regular and stuff. But I really wanted my day to be normal, just completely normal as it would be every other day. I didn't want anything to change and veer away from my normal because I felt comfortable, I felt confident, I felt safe in my normal. So kids got up, I made breakfast, short with cereal because I wasn't really in the mood for anything else. And, you know, I'm trying to get through contractions best I can, quietly, in my own little way, without making a scene in front of the kids or anything, you know, like I don't explain to them what's happening or what's going on. Just poking away. I rang my husband at 8:30. I said, look, I think things may be starting to happen. Starting to get some pain, you know, about 5 minutes apart. Can you consider getting back? And, you know, he said, oh, I'll ring the ambulance. And I said, no, there's no need to ring the ambulance right now. Just organise to come home. We can, you know, I kind of knew that I would be stalling, but I said we can just pack our bags and head into town. We can spend the day going to the park and whatever. And if we need to get to the hospital, you know, we'll be close to town. Meanwhile, he said, yep, okay. So he's trying to organise to come home. I'm just carrying on. I'm keeping an eye on how regularly the contractions are coming. They're about 3 minutes now, but they're volatile, like 15 seconds, 45 seconds, 30 seconds. Nothing's really the same. They're not really going longer and longer. And I messaged my mother-in-law. I said, look, can the kids come over for the morning? Can I send the kids over so that I can just finish packing my bags and stuff? You know, I don't want to forget the important thing. She said, sure. I was just about to kick him out the door with their water bottles to walk over, just close. And she turned up on my front door. Not really what I needed. I just wanted to be alone right now because, you know, things are ramping up. I've been keeping busy doing my chores, but now I just need, you know, I know it's happening. She does a few jobs for me and she gathers the kids ready to leave to her place. And when the kids were outside and my house was completely quiet, I was inside alone, my house was quiet. She said to me, do you want me to come back and wait with you while you wait for your husband to come home? You don't have to be here alone. I'm mid-contraction and it's intense. And I said, I was going to say no, but for some reason I said, sure, okay, come back. When you come back, I can't talk to you. You can be here, but I cannot talk to you and communicate with you right now. She said, sure, I don't expect you to. She went back, she told her daughter, look, I think things are a lot more advanced. Grab some towels, get stuff, you know, we may need to race her to the hospital. So she took about 10 minutes to come back, and in that time, a lot had happened. I sat, and it felt like I needed to sit on the toilet. I sat on the toilet, got a really intense contraction. I felt the baby drop into my pelvis. The waters broke. I had a splash in the toilet, checked the toilet. There was a tiny little drop of blood, but clear water in the toilet. And then I knew when he dropped like previously, I knew it was not far off. He was coming fast. She just walked back in the door to come back over to me. my husband had prior to that told me to ring the ambulance when I was in a mid-contraction, and I said, no, I can't do that right now. Just wait in the contraction. He hanged up on me and told his mother to ring the ambulance because I was too stubborn. So she came back and she's trying to ring the ambulance, and the ambulance lady's asking her all these questions. Can you see what's going on? I need to know. Can you see the head? And I didn't give her much room. I just dropped off the toilet on my hands and knees. And I said, the baby is coming. I can feel the head. The ambulance lady said, no, we need to know what's happening. I just sort of said to my mother-in-law, I said, shush this lady. Like, I cannot listen to her right now. Get her quiet because she's, I'm in my space, in my vibe here. She's not doing me any wonders. Like, she's just background noise. And sure enough, one contraction, his whole head came out. I feel him turning immediately. And one more portion, he's out. I caught him, picked him up, beautiful cord wrapped neatly around the back of his head, his neck, and he's perfect. He's not screaming, but he's not making a noise. He's very peaceful. And his cord is pulsing, and yeah, the most incredible experience that you could ever ask for. Not once was I worried during his birth. I remember being, a bit anxious about learning what to do if I had him, something wasn't quite like what I could do whilst waiting for paramedics or whatever. But birthing him, I was never anxious at all. I was never scared. I felt so at peace, regardless of the people around me freaking out. It was background noise. It didn't faze me one little bit because I knew what I wanted. I was safe at home. I was not being interfered with. I was just physiologically birthed. And yeah.
Wow, you had your free birth and, well, you had your home birth, you had your VBAC. That's what you wanted. You wanted to have a VBAC. And you had your baby. How long was this birth?
So it was about what I wrote down. It was about 8 hours, 8-9 hours, something like that. Like from the first onset of contractions.
Yeah.
But definitely his contractions came on, a bit more like traditional style, I suppose, far apart, and then slowly getting closer.
Do you think that he was head down at that time, or do you think he was still transverse when you went into labour?
I think as I started getting contractions, he started to become head down more and more, to the point where when I was sitting on the toilet and he completely then just dropped in. And I do wonder if that played a part in the labour being that bit longer, the contractions coming on, but he wasn't born so fast.
Yeah.
Because he was still, making his way around ready.
Yeah. I don't think the goal is, I think in the birth community, maybe the goal sometimes is trying to get the baby out as quickly as possible, but I don't think that's the goal. I think the goal is allowing the process to unfold the way it needs to, and that's what your baby did, and you worked together and your baby was born. So did your husband, did the ambulance come? Where was your husband? What did he say?
Yeah, so my mother-in-law rang the ambulance. They were a bit slow, I already had the baby. Yeah. Once I had the baby, the ambulance lady, and, she said the baby's fine. The ambulance lady was very quiet, quietly waiting. She said, ambulance is coming, lights and sirens, just stay put. And I was like, what? And we I was just about trying to get comfortable on a different towel, and my placenta was just trying to fall out. So, whoa, hang on a minute. The placenta just came out really, really well. So that was really nice. I put it in a bowl and I could actually move around.
Did you have any bleeding this time?
I did have bleeding. I sort of looked at the towels and I was like, oh, is that a bit much bleeding? Like, I was sort of actively bleeding, even sort of ambulance people came about 20 minutes after I gave birth. But then, I got my kids over quickly. They could come and have a look at the baby, and that was so stoked, Mum was fine with before, and then we went next door for 5 minutes, and now she's got a baby. Like, how cool is that? And so, and then they left again. Ambulance people said, oh, if you want to have a shower quickly, you can have a shower, and then we can take you in. I said, look, I don't really want to go in. I feel perfectly fine. There is a little bit of bleeding. I probably should get checked out for everyone's sake. Like, they've been so stressed about it. Like, I achieved what I wanted to achieve here. I'm willing to go in and get checked out. So we went in. They said, oh, well, we can't really measure the blood loss of the towels and stuff that you brought in because we don't know how much they weighed prior. But we'll just do a blood test and that will tell us how much blood loss, if it's too much or not. And we'll go from there. So they did that, came back fine. They believed it was perfectly fine. I did have a couple of sutures done for a little bit of tearing that I had. One being the little tear that I had with my first VBAC, just opening up in the same spot. And I did have an additional little tear as well. We were only in the hospital for that one night, and the next day I said, I'm going home. Easter time, nothing wrong with me, nothing wrong with my baby. We don't need to be here. We're going home. They wanted to do all their protocols, like hearing tests and heel pricks and this thing and that thing, but you have to be in there for, 2 or 3 days to do all those things. And I said, no, I'm going home. I'm going to have Easter with my family now. And obviously I was on such a high. I actually didn't want to go in and get the stitches because by that stage, by the time I got to the hospital, I was sore. 3-4 hours later after you give birth is not the time to have stitches. So I didn't really want to do that, but they said, look, if we suture it up, at least like where the bleeding's coming from, if it is from the tear or if it is, normal birthing, bleeding. So I said, oh, okay.
Fair enough. It's just amazing. So what did your husband actually say about everything?
So my husband was very happy. He said, I'm very happy for you that you got what you wanted. You didn't want to have a section. You didn't want to go to the hospital. I'm so pleased for you and very happy for you that you got what you wanted. But he obviously also missed birth. He was trying to get a chopper ride home, but he missed it. And I did have the baby with his mother and my mother-in-law, and I swore to him that, I was not having the baby with my mother-in-law. Like, he needed to get home. But anyway, it worked out the way it worked out. And to be completely honest, it was the best for both of us. He said he couldn't handle it. If he was home, he could not handle it.
Yeah.
Even if it was, the most unexpected thing, it's too much for him. But I knew that I was going to be okay to do that on my own. I did not need anyone as such. After having a session with you and doing that birth course with Jade, I didn't need anyone to tell me, that I can do this. I already had that support, so I was happy to be alone and just to be left to trust the process. Best of both worlds for both of us.
Yeah. Oh, it's so great. So how did you feel after all of that? How do you feel now? You're 4.5 months postpartum.
Yeah, no, I feel really good. Still just still on such a high. I cannot believe like I achieved what I had set out to want to achieve. My postpartum has been really, really good. He's feeding well. He's just divine and just fits into our family perfectly. Yeah, so
Congratulations.
thank you.
Congratulations on all your babies' births and your beautiful family now.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast and sharing all of your birth stories.
Yeah, that's all right. Thanks very much for having me. I really appreciate that so much.
You're welcome. I'm glad to have you. Thank you for tuning in to the VBAC Homebirth Stories podcast. I hope today's story inspired you to trust your body, own your choices, and embrace the power of birth. If you loved this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another mama who needs to hear this. Do you have a VBAC Homebirth story to share? I'd love to hear from you. Connect with me on ashleywinning.com or on Insta at AshleyLWinning. Until next time, take care and trust your body.